This is an overview of financial planning for your disabled child. This is based upon my experience and observations and talking with a lot of people. The key isn't what you think. It isn't about saving money or investment vehicles or anything like that. Those are all important, but the real key is protecting your child's access to disability services here in the United States. I'm going to go through 7 components, phases, however you want to talk about it, of financial planning. Some that you can start today, and some that may not be relevant until your child is an adult, and some that may not apply at all. Again, what you really need to work hard is to protect your child's access to disability services because of how our U.S. disability system is designed. It's a poverty by design system. You have to be broke, basically, to access disability services. If you've been doing this for a while, then you know what I'm going to say next. This is a long process. It's a lot of work, a ton of bureaucracy. Just keep at it step by step. And I hope you know where you are locally and here that we're all in this together. So let's get to it. My name is Steve Davis. I'm just another parent working things out. I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an accountant. I'm still on this journey. My son is still relatively young. This is what I've learned from other parents of disabled kids, from disabled adults, from lawyers and accountants, and occasionally something useful from the internet, but we have to be careful about that. The 2 things that I want you to take away from this is a team sport. We're all in this together, and that's why I'm sharing what I'm sharing with you, to give you tools. I'm grateful to those who've helped me get where I am today. Usual disclaimer, I'm responsible for anything wrong I've said so far, but do your own research, but I hope this gives you a good jump start. 2, and this surprised me, much better is possible. There is a ton of tools out there that you can use. Things are very, very different in different states and different countries, and what that really means is that much better is possible. Wherever you are at today, there's a better place to get to. And I hope by sharing what I've learned, and if you share what you've learned, we can get there a lot more easily. If you can't tell, I'm an older parent, and I want to help my disabled son now, but I also want to shape things and do what I can to make the world that he lives in better, because I know I'm not going to be there, or I hope I'm not going to be there for some portion of his life. And so I want to leave behind a world that's better, safer, more inclusive, more accessible, and more welcoming to my son. Speaking of which, please share your thoughts and comments and questions and experiences below in the comments below. And to feed the algorithm, do the thumbs up or subscribe, all of the usual stuff. But actually, if this does help you, I hope you share it with others who this may be helpful for. Thank you. Who is this for? This is for a parent, a person like me, or a caregiver, that your child has a sufficient disability that you are already dealing with state bureaucracies and federal benefits and all of that stuff. This may be applicable to other people in different circumstances. If you don't currently qualify for services, as with everything in disability, your mileage may vary a lot. This is not the answer. Hopefully, this will give you a good jumping off point, but you'll probably need to do your own research. And I hope you'll share what you find so we can all do better. You can always reach me here on the video channel, or you can contact me at disabilityalmanac.com. Onward. Okay, we're going to have to talk about why I call it poverty by design. The U.S. disability services system is a benefits program like welfare. It isn't a insurance program like Social Security. And because it works like welfare, you've got to be broke. Basically, no assets, no income, not a problem when your kid is young, but maybe a problem later. And you have to make sure they stay that way or they'll lose eligibility. If, say, someone gave your child a big gift, a car, a bequest, even a couple $1,000s, it could totally wipe out their eligibility for disability services, and it could take you 2 years to get those services back. I don't have the numbers memorized, but I think it is something like you can have $1,800 in assets and $1,200 in income to be eligible, or it's the other way around, and that number may change, and I hope it does. Check the numbers. Basically, also, it's a 0 or 1 system. You're either eligible or you're not. There's no graceful fall off where you slowly lose services. You're eligible or you're not. I hope, and this is in the long term, we change from a benefits program to a universal disabilities insurance program where there aren't asset limits, there aren't income limits, there aren't copays. You can get married. Yeah, in certain circumstances, people with disabilities literally can't get married or they'll lose their services. And also, let's just finally get rid of the subminimum wage. If a disabled person works, they deserve to be paid at least minimum wage. Okay. Let me know what you think about those topics, and I may do another video on that. Okay, this is number 1. It's easy, it's quick. Set up an ABLE account. There are not different ABLE account programs in different states, but you can use an ABLE account program from another state. It literally will take less time than it will take to watch this video at 2 times speed. So just set up the account. ABLE accounts, I'm going to have to read this a little bit, are for children and young adults that have significant disabilities with an age of onset before turning 26. And I think in 2026, they're actually going to open that window up to age 46, which is great. An ABLE account is a savings vehicle that works like a Roth IRA, but you can access the money immediately. So it's taxable going in, but the people who run it will give you investment options, stocks and bonds and all the usual things. But that's not the important thing you need to remember. What's really important, the thing you need to know, is that any assets in the ABLE account will not affect your child's eligibility for disability services. And that is the key. It is pretty fast to set one up. Again, you could probably do it in 15 minutes. I think that's how long it took me. You self-certify your disability status. I don't think there's any benefit to setting one up if you're not qualified, so don't do that. You'll probably just make it harder for the rest of us. But get started. Rather than buying a coffee at Starbucks today, put some money in the account. If you can't afford to do that every day, how about once a week? You know, $10 a week. And if you can't afford that, $10 a month. And if you need to, you can set up kind of like a GoFundMe page, but a donation page where family members or others can contribute to your child. This is a really important, really basic tool that if your child qualifies for it, could be really important to both supporting their financial future while preserving their access to disability services. I'll be doing a separate video on ABLE accounts soon if you have any questions. Please ask your questions and share your experiences so I can make that video better. The next tool you need to use or can use is a special needs trust. I did not come up with the term special needs trust. Yes, it is actually called a special needs trust. And what it is, very simply, is a properly set up piece of your estate plan that allows your child to inherit money from your house or your IRA or any other financial assets that you have, to inherit those assets in a way that doesn't adversely affect their eligibility for disability services, because that's really the key, again, protecting that access to those disability services. As far as I know, this is not one of those things you can do it yourself. It really needs to be done properly by a lawyer. If I'm wrong, let me know. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to mess it up, because if it's done wrong, again, your child could lose access to those necessary services. Our experience was my parents generously set up a small, just regular trust for both my kids when they were little, really little. And then when my son was diagnosed with autism, and we found out about all of this, we actually wound up having to dissolve that trust, pay a bunch of taxes, set up a special needs trust, and it was a big pain. So I'd like you to hopefully avoid that if you can. It was a pain. So talk to a lawyer. If you haven't set up your estate, set up your estate. We'll be talking about that in a moment, but make sure they have experience setting up special needs trust. Your estate plan is your defense master plan for your kids. It's not just about your money, it's about how you plan for caring for them in the short term, which may be different than your plan for caring for them in the long term, as well as your plan for their financial future, or your part of their financial future. I know this is something hard to think about. We waited a couple years before we actually got around to doing it. You will sleep much better knowing that you've done this properly, especially if you've got a disabled kid. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have the default, whatever the government thinks should be done with your kids, if you haven't set up your will and estate properly. And it's good to know you don't need to actually have one person to do all of this. You can have one person worrying about finances. You can have a different person, say if something happens to you, only in the short term, and perhaps someone else for the longer term. But it's an important document, and it's an important document to keep up to date. That I've done personally and gone through. The rest of this is questions I've asked, research I've done. I have not experienced any of these yet. Thanks to those who've helped. And again, anything that you can provide to make this better, let me know. Number 4, conservatorships. I've been asked by a surprising number of parents of very young kids about conservatorships. The good news is you don't have to worry about it, at least not for a while. Basically, as a parent, you are the trustee or conservator of your child until they're an adult, so 18 typically in the United States. Um, and so, what you need to do if you need to plan for conservatorship is you do it sometime between age 17 and 18. Here in California, it doesn't even require a lawyer, but it is a legal proceeding that you're going to have to go through. Um, but it is, you know, a relatively straightforward process. But conservatorship doesn't work like it used to, and that's a good thing. It's now the model is called supported decision making. And surprisingly, it's even for the government, it makes a lot of sense. Basically, what you want to do is preserve as many of the rights and abilities of a person as possible, and give them support where they're needed, hence the name supported decision making. Um, so the aspects of conservatorship versus the rights of the individual are worked out on a case by case basis based upon the needs of the individual child, soon to be an adult. Um, Conservatorships have had problems. Uh, it's been in the news. There are some pretty horrible stories. The most famous one, of course, being Britney Spears and her terrible experience with conservatorship, her father's conservatorship. So it needs to be done properly and carefully. Um, if you want me to do a video just on that topic, I will do some more research. But ask me your questions and share your experiences. Break. Okay. Hopefully, your child will become an adult. I know I'm looking forward to my children moving out and having successful, happy lives on their own without me, except for Thanksgiving and Christmas or stuff like that. Um, but if you've got a disabled child, you need to be, I think, even more attentive to these, thinking about the future than parents of a typical child. Um, our job as parents, at least I see it, is to prepare our child for the real world, not protect them from it. And for a disabled child, that probably means having higher expectations than a lot of other people for your child, making sure they get a good education, as much education as possible, doing the financial planning, putting all the pieces in place so that they're best positioned to be an independent adult they can be. Um, some things to know that I didn't know till relatively recently. Um, there are programs, I think 350 around the United States, for young adults with disabilities to go to college. I think there's 5 of them right now in California. California just passed a law to strengthen the support for college education for kids with intellectual disabilities. So I'm hoping there'll be more programs here. There's also a big push to get more kids with disabilities with real high school diplomas, not just certificates, and definitely doing more to reduce dropout rates for kids with disabilities. Um, that education matters for outcomes. The poverty rate for disabled people is really depressing, and it's even worse when they don't have a good education. So the more you can get your child ready, the better. Um, so that's kind of would be true for a lot of that would be true for a non-disabled kid, but you may want to or need to start thinking about or think about, hey, where should I live or where should my child live in the United States? What states have better services? who has better life expectancy, health care, who has shorter waiting lists for disability services. There's a whole lot of data that I've been researching and digging up, uh, and things vary very widely by states. Some states are great at some stuff and terrible at other stuff. And that's one of the reasons I do these videos, because it was shocking to me how different incomes are, poverty rates are in different states. You'll just have to wait. Um, but what do you think? Um, what would you want to know to plan for your child's future, about where they would live and other things? I don't know. I've been doing my research, but I really welcome your input. There are things, I don't know what else to call them, complications that can come up along the way, and the two big ones that I've come up with are dealing with your child, where they will live, and with you giving up your parental rights. So, if your child has a more serious disability, and this could actually even happen before they're an adult, where they need to move out of your house into an assisted living facility or a group home or a long care facility, or even move somewhere out of state. Um, and then the other side of that, and maybe tied in with it, is you may have to give up some of your rights as a parent in order for your child to get services that they need, perhaps because of their disability, or because of addiction, or mental health, or other areas. Um, Whatever it is, I've got to say, this fortunately hasn't happened to me, but I've heard about it, and you probably have too, and it's scary. Um, I think the way to think about it is kind of like we approach all of this, and this is just me thinking this through with you. Um, if you have to do these things, if you have to give up your rights, if your child has to live in another state, you still care about them. You're still their parent. You should make sure that whatever you're giving up is as limited as possible. Um, Perhaps it's limited in time. Perhaps you have the ability to undo it if you think services aren't being done properly. Um, you need a way to monitor what's going on. You still care about your kid. You need to do what you can to protect them. And it may be easier for others just to say, don't worry, we'll take care of it. Well, this is what used to happen before the 1970s, before we had basic disability rights laws, and kids and adults were sent off to institutions. And if you've seen the history, it's horrible. Um, they were neglected, they weren't fed, they weren't taken care of, they may have been abused. It was a terrible system that needed to be really reformed. Um, and so, whatever you do in this area, do so with caution, and get legal advice. And because what you don't want to do is for something to go wrong and then you not be able to fix it. Well, that was depressing. On to the next depressing topic. I'm going to die. Hopefully not soon. I'm turning 59 this year, and my dad and my in-laws are both well into elderly. So I've kind of really, I guess, sensitive to this issue. Um, I think my goal and the way I think about this is I want things to go successfully, smoothly, and easily, both for my wife and my kids. Um, you know, I want to plan for the situation where my son may not be able to be independent, but be as independent as possible. I want to make sure that my wife isn't put in a situation where she is, you know, has to do or give up all of her life to take care of our son, no matter how much she loves him. Um, this is about financial planning, but it's about more than that. It's about kind of doing what you can to make things easier and smoother for those who you love. Um, so that's what all this is. It's, you know, it's what goes into your estate planning, but it's sort of what is your plan, and it doesn't have to. It may not just be in the estate document. Um, what are you putting in place to take care of your spouse as well as your kids? And if you don't have all the pieces there yet, what can you do to get as many of them in place as soon as possible? All right, well, that was super depressing. By the way, have you set up your Able account yet? It shouldn't take long. I hope this has been useful. If you have suggestions as to what could go into another version of this or questions that I could answer, again, on my website, disabilityalmanac.com, questions in the comments below. How can we make this better and easier for people? You can reach me a lot of ways here. I'm on all the things. So, what can we do to so that this process, which is inherently hard, at least is as easy and as straightforward as possible? I'm going to be adding more videos on this topic and other related topics. I'm going to talk about special education, disability employment, healthcare, housing. I've done a lot of research and learned a lot, and I want to share it with you. What would you like me to explore? Uh, Thank you for your time, and yeah, my best wishes. Bye.